let's talk about welfare and equilibrium. So, what is welfare and equilibrium? Welfare and equilibrium are different concepts. Although they are frequently confused with each other, we have a defined welfare as the state of well-being of the persons comprising an economic system. On the other hand, we have defined equilibrium as a state of rest, a position on which there is neither incentive nor opportunity to move. We shall look at some of principal aspects of each these concepts. We have here a welfare. Most economic analysis in the welfare aspect of economic activity, how to achieve maximum or welfare constitute a major problem. As noted in previous chapter, the concept straightforward where only one person is being considered and is synonymous with persons well-being. But when more than one individual is at issue, an objective definition of a unique optimum welfare and position for the group as a whole become impossible, since such a definition would require interpersonal comparison of satisfaction. The Pareto optimal situation, in which no one can be made better off without making someone else worse off, is the best solution that we can attain. There is no unique Pareto optimal situation for a group. A number of alternatives in such situation may exist, and we have no way of determining which optimum is optimum.
Equilibrium. Concepts are important not because equilibrium position are ever attained, but because these concepts show us the direction in which economic move. When equilibrium positions are stable, as they have been assumed throughout this book, economic units disequilibrium move toward equilibrium even as they are doing so. However, in consumers' preference patterns, supplies and technology alter equilibrium position themselves. The movement that are occur if equilibrium positions are unstable. Disturbances will cause economic units to move farther away from rather than towards such position. We never actually reach perfection in real life. The economy is always moving and changing. People change what they want to buy. Nature changes how much we can produce. And new invention change how things are made. Because change so fast, we never actually stop at that perfect balance point. But it tells us which way to go even though we never get there. Knowing what equilibrium is help us see the direction the economy is moving. It is like a compass or a destination on a map. We know we are heading towards that balance even if the road keeps changing. Two types of movements. First is stable equilibrium. Like a ball in a bowl, if you push it, it will roll back to the center. If the economy is stable, problems fix themselves and things go back to normal. Second is unstable equilibrium. Like a ball on the top of the hill, if you push it even a little, it rolls down fast and gets further away. If the economy is unstable, small problems make things worse and worse. Example: driving a car. The concept: equilibrium is driving exactly in the center of your lane. Unstable: if you drift a little to the left, you turn the wheel slightly right to get back to the center. This is stable. You move towards the goal. Now, unstable. Imagine if the steering wheel was broken. If you drift left, the car automatically turns more left and goes off the road. This is unstable. You move away from safety.
Partial equilibrium analysis is an economic framework that studies how individual economic entities, consumers, businesses, and resource owners adjust their behavior to achieve a state of balance. Equilibrium based on specific given economic conditions like income, prices, and demands, and resource availability. These adjustments are always made using the provided data. So, a significant component of economic analytical framework is known as partial equilibrium analysis. This method focuses on understanding how individual economic entities, including consumers, businesses, and resource owners, move toward stable equilibrium position when confronted with a specific economic condition. For instance, a consumer possessing distinct tastes and preferences adjusts purchasing decision based on their given income and availing price of goods and services to achieve equilibrium. Similarly, a business firm facing specific products demands adjusts its operating to reach an equilibrium. Resource owner with a fixed quantity of resources allocated them to the employment opportunity based on availability, alternatives, and offer prices. All these equilibrium adjustments are predicted on the given economic data. Within a particular industry, the interplay of demand and cost dictates profit and losses, which in turn drives new firms to enter to existing one to exit. Moving the industry towards equilibrium, any changes in the foundation economic data will cause this equilibrium position for both individual units and industry to shift, prompting further adjustment. So, within any given industry, the interplay of demand and cost condition determines whether firms experience profit or losses. This profit of new firms, if feasible, or not exist of existing ones, guiding the industry toward an overall equilibrium when the initial economic data presented to individual economic unit and industry changes. The corresponding equilibrium position shift, prompting further adjustment to reach this new state of balance. Partial equilibrium analysis is particularly effective for examining two kinds of economic issues: those involving disturbance localized to a single industry or sector without widespread economic impact, and those focusing on immediate, direct consequences, first order effect, or any economic disruption. So, partial equilibrium analysis is a particular well suited for addressing two distinct categories of economic problems. The first category encompasses economic disturbances that are limited in scope and magnitude, meaning their impact does not extend significantly beyond the specific industry or sector of the economy. The second category deals with identifying the intermediate or the first order effects resulting any types of economic disturbance. An example of the first type of problem is the strike by production workers at a small plastic manufacturer. Due to the company's limited scope and the diverse nature of its workers, the strike impact would largely be confined to the company and its employees, making partial equilibrium analysis suitable for the understanding the economic problem. As an illustration of the first type of problem, consider a scenario where production worker at a small manufacturer of a plastic products initiate a strike. Given that company facility is located in a large urban area and its workforce is broadly distributed, and economic consequences of such a strike would largely be confirmed to the company itself and its directly effective employees. In this case, partial equilibrium analysis would be highly effective in eliminating most of the economic issue arising from the strike. For the second type of problem, if the remanent program suddenly increases steel demand, partial equilibrium analysis can identify the intermediate effect on the steel industry prices, output, profits, resource demand, resource prices, and employment level. However, it's crucial to understand that these intermediate effects do not represent the full range of repercussion from initial economic disturbance. For an example of a second type of problem, imagining permanent programs suddenly leading to the surge in demand of steel. Partial equilibrium analysis would then be employed to ascertain with a order effect on steel industry. This would include examining changes in steel prices, output levels, profitability, demand for resources, resource price, and employment level within the steel sector. It is important to acknowledge, however, that these initial first-order effects do not represent the entirety of the persecution that may ultimately stem from the original economic disturbance.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Claire and I'm going to report about general equilibrium. General equilibrium. It is refers to a situation where all economic units, the firms, consumers, and industries are in balance at the same time, and each one's action affect the others, showing that the whole economy is interconnected. In general equilibrium, the entire economy is stable. Consumers are satisfied with what they buy, firms are okay with their production and profits, and industries are running smoothly. Everyone is connected, so what one group does affect the others. So moving on, as individual economic units and industries seek equilibrium adjustment, their total group action change the facts that they face. Those in this equilibrium would move their activities toward equilibrium and would change the fact faced by the unit in equilibrium. General equilibrium for the entire economy could only exist if all economic units were to achieve simultaneous partial or particular equilibrium adjustment. The concept of general equilibrium stresses the interdependence of all economic unit and segment of the economy. So, when businesses or people try to adjust to reach equilibrium or a stable situation, their actions don't happen in isolations. If some are already in balance but others are not, those who are not balanced will change what they do, like changing prices, outputs, or buying habits. But when they change, it also affects the others who were already in equilibrium, pushing them out of balance again. So everyone keep reacting to each other. Because of that, the whole economy can only be in general equilibrium if all individual parts like firms, industries, and consumers are in equilibrium at the same time. So the economy works like a system where every decision affects other decisions, showing strong interdependence between all economic units. Next is the demarcation line between partial analysis and general equilibrium analysis is difficult to draw. Instead of dichotomy, it will be preferable to think of moving along a continuum from partial to general equilibrium. For example, discussing pricing and output under condition of peer competition, we are concerned first with partial equilibrium or equilibrium of the individual firms. Next, we extend the analysis to an entire industry and observe the impact of individual firms' action on one another. This series of topics represent progressive movement from the application of partial equilibrium analysis to that of general equilibrium analysis. So, the idea of partial and general equilibrium is better understood as a gradual shift rather than a clear dividing line. In partial equilibrium, we focus on a single unit, like a firm, and study how it sets prices and output based on its own cost and demand. As we expand the analysis, we begin to see that firms' decisions affect other firms in the same industry, creating interactions and competitions. Moving further, we reach the general equilibrium where all industries, resources, and consumer preferences are interconnected. Changes in one part of the economy create ripple effect across many other parts. This shows that economic analysis moves along a continuum from looking at direct, immediate effect to understanding broader, more complex impact throughout the entire economy.
General equilibrium theory provides the analytical tool for accomplishing two objectives. From the standpoint of pure theory, it provides the means of viewing the economic system and the entirely, the means of seeing what holds it together, what makes it work, and how it operates. The pure theory discussing the whole point or the whole uh, the whole story, how it works, how it operates, and how it makes together. It permits determination of the second, third, and higher order effect of the economic disturbance. These objectives is really an application of the first one. When the impact of an economic disturbance is of a sufficient magnitude to the repercussion through most of the economy, general equilibrium analysis provides the more relevant answers regarding to the ultimate effects. Convenient to discuss given of equilibrium in mathematical terms. The independence of economic units is shown through system of simultaneous equation relating the many economic variables to one another. Solving the system of equation establishing those value of variables that are considered the general equilibrium for economic system. The Walrasian version of general equilibrium provides the essential theoretical apparatus for understanding the interrelationship of the various sections of the economy. The second variant of general equilibrium analysis is Wesley W. Leontief's input-output analysis. The input-output approach is an empirical descendants. It is an abstraction. Where Walrasian approach, it provides economic into the numbers of section or industries, including households and the government as industries of final demand. Each industry is viewed as selling of outputs to others. These outputs become inputs of the purchasing industry. Likewise, each industry is viewed as a purchase of the outputs of the other industries. Thus, the interdependence of each industry on other is established as statistical data gathered around the basic frameworks of the system provides an information and useful pictures of the inter-industry flows of goods, service, and resources. The input-output approach has been used extensively in municipalities, states, regions, for economics development purposes. Input and output is very useful so para ang goods or services is maglapad. Like, we don't need na mag-travel around the world to buy that product because the product will go to each places to be purchase kag para hindi na mabudlayan ang mga tawo nga mangita sa nga mo nga product, and it will help the seller para makabenta sila. Last, the attainment of general equilibrium is an economic system does not imply that Pareto optimality is also attained. A price system tends to move the economy towards general equilibrium. However, unless pure competition exists the both products and resources market, and unless there are no examinations occurring, Pareto optimality will not follow.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Vincent Emon Jodan, and I'm the reporter of the Theory of General Equilibrium. General equilibrium theory is a fundamental concept in economics that analyzes how supply and demand interact across multiple markets simultaneously, aiming to show how prices and quantities are determined in an entire economy rather than just a single market. What is general equilibrium theory? A core economic concept that analyzes how supply and demand interact across multiple markets simultaneously. Focuses on a purely competitive economy. Explain how prices and quantities are determined in the entire economic system, not just one market. Leon Walras. He's a French economist, 1834 to 1910. The first person to formally design a model of general equilibrium. Leon Warlas was a French economist, recognized as the first person to formally design a model of general equilibrium for a purely competitive economy. Later, economists improved and refined Walras' model, but they did not make fundamental or radical changes to its core ideas. Contribution of Vilfredo Pareto. Italian economist in 1848 to 1923. He also made important contributions to mathematical development of general equilibrium theory, built on Walras' foundation work to advance the field. Summary. Walras' model is simple in its basic economics logic but complex mathematically. It explains how markets and prices interact across an entire economy. The theory is logically sound and complete. Scholars like Pareto further improve its mathematical foundation. Both technical and non-technical explanation help understand its core ideas.
Welcome. Today we're going to talk about the limitations of the model. The valuation model is a simplified representation of a perfectly competitive economy, but it has significant limitations. It is static, meaning it assumes fixed preferences, production methods, and outcomes with no changes over time. It also assumes that instantaneous adjustments where supply, demand, and prices react immediately without delays, unlike reality. While economists like Hicks have tried to develop dynamic models, they have not yet been fully successful. However, the model can be expanded to include more complex factors such as variable production of coefficients, returns to scale, money, and imperfect competition. So it doesn't simply mean it is static. First, the model is static. This means it assumes that everything stays in the same forever. People's preferences, tastes, and the way products are made do not change over time because businesses keeps producing the same things and consumers keep buying the same things. There is no growth or evolution. And also, the model assumes that everything happens instantaneously. It's like electric circuit. When demand changes, changes, supply and price adjust immediately with zero delay. But in real life, we know that changes take time. There are always delays or lags between decisions and results. And it called economists like Hicks tried to make it better. It means dynamic models that show how things change over time, but so far, creating a perfect model for these changes has not fully successful. And lastly, while the basic model is simple, it can be improved. We can remove assumption that production methods fixed. More complex version can created to include money, different scales of production, and even imperfect competitions. So in short, the valuation model is a good guide but is a simplified version of reality. Thank you.
Uses of general equilibrium theory. General equilibrium models, despite their limitations, are valuable tools for understanding how a private enterprise economy functions. They demonstrate that such a system can operate efficiently, align production with consumer needs, and maximize satisfaction within the limits of available resources. This model serves as strong arguments in favor of private enterprise over all collectivist systems. However, the theory presents an idealized view. In these models, entrepreneurs are passive actors who simply respond to price signals rather than innovating or taking risks. Despite the simplification, the theory has practical application, most notably providing the foundation for input-output analysis. Developed by Wassily Leontief, this method measures economic interdependence and is widely used for economic planning and development. For example, why free business works well. In a free market, shop sells what people like to buy. If many people want phones, more shops will sell them and prices will stay fair. This shows that business can work efficiently without the government controlling everything, which is better than a system where the government decides everything.
At this point, allow me to discuss the conditions of optimum welfare. Optimum welfare refers to the best situation in an economy where resources are used efficiently and both consumers and producers benefit the most. The main idea, according to the topic, the conditions of optimum welfare are grouped into three sets. These three sets conditions help explain how an economy can achieve the best possible outcomes. The first condition is maximum consumer welfare, when supplies of goods and services are fixed. This means that even if resources are limited, goods should be distributed in a way that gives the greatest satisfactions to consumers. Example, if there is a limited supply of rice, it should be distributed to people who need or value it the most. Second, maximum production efficiency means that producers use available resources like labor, machines, and materials in the most efficient way to produce goods. For instance, a factory using modern machines and skilled workers can produce more product at the lowest cost, avoiding waste. Example, a factory should use the best method and machines to produce more products with less cost. Third, combination of both. Optimum welfare is achieved when both consumer welfare and production efficiency are combined. This means that economy produces the right amount of goods, and these goods are distributed properly to satisfy consumers. Example, a company producing affordable school supplies in the right quantity ensure that students can buy what they need while the business operates efficiently. In simple terms, optimum welfare is reached when resources are used wisely, production is efficient, and people receive the goods that give them the most benefit. Overall, the condition of optimum welfare help us understand how an economy can work efficiently and fairly. Even if resources are limited, Proper allocation and efficient production can lead to the best outcome for everyone.
And now, we will talk all about the summary. First is the objective of general equilibrium theory. Number 1, to provide the means of viewing the economic system in its entirely. Number 2, to permit determination of second, third, or higher order effect of an economic disturbance. Another is limitation of general equilibrium theory. Number 1, it assumes fixed and unchanging tastes and production. Number 2, it assumes no leads and lags between production and consumption. Number 3, it works only for a purely competitive market. Number 4, it does not account for increasing or decreasing return to scale. And next, uses of general equilibrium theory. Number 1, advance the understanding of private enterprise economy. Number 2, furnishes the conceptual foundation for the input-output analysis. And last is optimum welfare condition. Number 1, maximum consumption welfare when supplier or goods and services are fixed. Number 2, maximum production efficiency when supplier are fixed. Number 3, maximum consumer welfare and production efficiency are combined to determine optimal output.